What's up, guys? You're about to watch me do an interview with Jimmy Muller from Muller Chokes. We get a little bit of an insight as to how he got started and what sets his chokes apart from the rest of the chokes in this world, which there are a ton of them. So stay tuned for that and get ready because I think a lot of you guys are about to change your mind about what chokes you're using.
There we
Uh,
go.
all right.
Good
Perfect.
deal, man.
Perfect. Well, thanks
How
for
you
me.
doing?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Good. Yeah.
Busy, busy, man.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself?
So basically I was born in 69. I started duck hunting in 1975 and shot my first teal flying October 13th, 1975 with my dad Stevens 311 side by side 410 and never looked back. So I would say about 1988, I graduated trade school as a machinist and started working in aerospace and defense manufacturing, all very tight tolerance stuff. And fast forward to 1993, I wanted to become a better wing shooter. And my dad was like a master wing shooter. My brother was a master wing shooter. The only time those guys ever fired, three shots is if there are three ducks or more in the sky. And they'd always let me shoot first. I'd empty my gun. They'd laugh at me and then kill everything. So in 1993, I decided I wanted to become a better wing shooter, and I heard about sporting clays. So I entered a local tournament, shot it with my Remington 870 Wingmaster with fixed full choke, and I won. I won hunter class, won a big framed goose print from Ducks Unlimited, and never looked back. Very exciting, and I realized I wanted to dive into sporting clays with both feet and become competitive and just become a better shooter overall. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. And in 1993, when I made that decision, one of the main things I decided was, hey, I had to buy the best of everything, right? I had to buy an over and under shotgun, which everybody used at the time for competing. I had to have the best choke tubes. I had to use the best ammo. Had to buy a really good vest. All these things. And what I came quick to realize was that choke tubes were very lacking, and I actually had to buy 10 modified chokes from the top choke manufacturer in the world just to get two to pattern right. And the reason being, the first two I bought, one of them patterned like a skeet and one patterned like a full choke. And when I went in the shop and I measured them, they both measured 20 thousandths from my bore, which is modified. And it literally blew my mind. I couldn't understand how could they pattern both extremes of the patterning board, but measure the same exact thing at the exit diameter. And we could talk about this for really days on end. But what I came to realize as a machinist and all that stuff was that the geometry inside the choke was the thing that really dictated the pattern, not the exit diameter. So all these years from, back when choke was created all the way to today, and I'm sure for quite a few more years of future, um, everybody goes by thousandths of an inch constriction or exit diameter, or, you know, how much does it, how much is it constricted from the bore diameter? And the fact is, the thousandths of an inch constriction in a choke tube is grossly secondary to the geometry in the choke. And furthermore, it really matters which gun it's in on top of that. So, like, if you take every shotgun you own, or if you take every shotgun on the entire market, which I did, and you take the choke tubes out of them and you just shoot threads, they all pattern different. So how can you take a choke tube that's, let's say, 10 thousandths constriction, which is an improved cylinder, and put it in all those different guns that pattern totally different, and tell me it's an improved cylinder? You can't. It's not real. It's not truth. And it's very far from the truth and very far from the fact. So I realized this when I started doing all my testing. When I found out what was wrong with those 10 modified chokes, what made them all pattern so differently, even though they were all within a thousandth of an inch of the 20 thousandths of my bore, I realized it was the geometries, roundness, cylindricity, straightness, squareness, surface finish, length of parallel, all these things. It all mattered a lot. And that's when I started making my own chokes back in '93 because of this situation. I called the choke manufacturer, the president of the company, and I told him what happened. I told him what I found, and he told me, "You bought them, you own them, kid," and he hung up on me. So I had 10 choke tubes that I spent every dollar I had, and they were garbage. So I literally threw them in the garbage. I went in the shop the next day. I made my own, and I never looked back. And that's what brought me to today and Muller chokes and all of that, all of that good stuff.
Oh, good. I'm glad you had that skill where you could take where other people are lacking and be able to improve upon it and make it work a million times better than what everybody else has. And so,
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
It
I
was it was literally all based on necessity, right? So in moving forward after I learned all that stuff, I competed with my own chokes for years, won shoots all over the country, became master class shooter, became national champion, state champion, all that fun stuff. And I've literally shot millions of clay targets, and I've used every gun, every choke, every ammo. I've even been sponsored by some of them over the years. And as you can imagine, I've shot a lot of ducks, you know, and geese and pheasant and crows and you name it. But through all these years of testing and developing, what had happened was I started my own machine shop in 2004. And in 2008, I was cruising along doing well, and the economy tanked. And I lost all 51 customers in aerospace and defense and medical. And at the time, I was like, well, I need something to help pay the bills. What am I going to do? And I knew that the featherlight choke that I had invented for myself for an advantage was the best choke in the world, hands down. And the reason it was is because I fixed every problem choke tubes had in the market. And it was my advantage. I never let anybody touch one. I never let them use it, because if they ever touched one and picked it up, they would be like, what is this? Because it was so light. And so I decided I would patent it and bring it out of the closet and see if it would help pay the bills. And so in 2009, at a Christmas shoot in December, I basically had my patent pending number at the time. And I brought it out of the closet, and I told people about it at a shoot. And very quick period of time, it literally exploded and took off. I was getting sales from Australia and Sweden, Africa. I mean, I was getting UK, you name it. I was getting orders from all over the world, and I didn't even have a website. And I found out that Shotgun World, somebody had posted the results on there, and it literally went viral. And it took off. So I got my patent number. So it was an official patent in 2010, and my featherlight chokes were born. And that was for clay target competition and upland game. And my plan was full circle, come around and do a hunting choke for waterfowl and big game, home defense, all that fun stuff. And that's what I've done. And now my hunting choke is catching up to my clay target choke, and it's revolutionizing the industry very quickly. So
I
very exciting stuff.
I I have a job where I sell firearms, and you it's odd because I sell them in a farm and ranch store, so we don't sell a ton of accessories. And one of the things that I get asked about a lot is, do factory chokes versus aftermarket chokes matter? And I'm a firm believer that they absolutely do, because I've had shotguns that identical shotguns, but they don't pattern the same with the same choke, just like you were saying. And so I tell
Yep.
people all the time that it would be best to find a choke better than what you have. And ever since I've heard of your chokes have been the ones that I've been bringing up, um, because I've seen the evidence on it. I watched that episode on surviving duck season that had your chokes on there, and prior to that, I was using another choke that did really well in those tests, but compared to yours, I mean, there's no competition. And so that's
Yeah,
why
thank
I
you.
bring up your chokes on those.
Yeah. What I teach people about factory chokes is the fact that factory chokes are basically spit out of screw machines, and the choke manufacturers that make them pretty much charge them like $3 or $5 each. Okay. So that's what you're getting when you get a factory choke. And you've got to understand millions and millions are needed for each manufacturer. So they've got to be spit out of screw machines very quickly. They've got to be inexpensive because it's the only way you could afford to make them, because factory shotgun manufacturers, they don't want to pay a lot of money for a factory choke, obviously, because a factory choke, to be honest with you, is an afterthought of all firearm manufacturers. I've proven it with even highly expensive firearms that are out there that are at the top of the food chain, that start at $10,000 and go up to $1 million.
Right.
$100,000 shotguns in this brand are very common. And I spoke with the owners, and they basically proved to me and admitted that choke tubes are an afterthought, and they don't care about chokes. They don't care about patterns. They only care about destruction tests, that it doesn't break when they shoot through it with steel ball bearings. I mean, this is what I've had conversations with them about. And what I said to them was, well, that explains why your chokes pattern like garbage. And of course, they take a step back and look at me with cross eyes and don't like the way I say it, but it's true. It's
Mhm.
truth. And so I explained to them why their chokes don't pattern right, and the differences, and they listen to me and they understand it. And then they take their defense and they say, well, we don't care about the patterns. We know that people will end up buying aftermarket chokes anyway, so we don't really care what we get. And I'm like, okay, well, that's unfortunate for all the people that don't understand that, they shouldn't be using factory chokes because they are that poor. With that said, because of the way the chokes are made for every single gun when it comes to OEM factory chokes, there are certain chokes you will get lucky with from factory that do pattern really good. The problem is we don't know which one it's going to be. We don't know if it's going to be any of the ones that came with the gun, but it could be, depending on which ammo you put through it and what distance, of course, you're shooting. So yes, factory chokes sometimes are good. Very few and far between will pattern the way they're marked. Very low percentage, and most of them have a very high shot-to-shot deviation because of the way they're made. No revolutionary invention or innovative things have gone into factory chokes from when they were created for each gun. If you look at chokes for any of the manufacturers, going back to when it was first created to the ones that are being spit out today and come with the guns, they're pretty much identical. So even though bore diameters are changing in guns, although ammunitions are changing at a very fast pace. Ammo manufacturers are like microbreweries. They're popping up everywhere, and people are just making ammo. And there's a lot of things that they're doing that are good. Some are pioneers of the industry doing wonderful things, and others are just followers. They follow the industry, and they're giving us ammo that is not good. But because people don't know what's good, they're asking for it. And ammo companies are catering to them and giving them the crap that they're asking for that's not good. So, it's a vicious circle that the ammo companies have created. It's a vicious circle what the ammo, gun, and choke manufacturers have actually created for all of us. And the reason that I created my own chokes is, like I said, I could not get a choke to pattern the way that it was intended to be used or that it was marked. And if I did get lucky and get one that patterned good, it was good in this one gun with this one ammo, but not good in any of the other guns or the other ammos. So this is what I perfected and created, which is what I call gun specific patterning geometry. I created specific geometry for every gun, for every choke, for every constriction, to pattern every ammo on the market the best that it could pattern. And it's made a tremendous difference for people. So that's a little bit about myself. I could go on for a long time. Obviously, I've got a lot of experience and I've done a lot. So, but that's about where we're at.
All right. Well, I gotta say, I'm very impressed with the chokes. Um, I do have a quick question for you, and this is a question that was actually
Sure.
brought up to me yesterday. Um, I had a customer come and talk to me. He's getting back into duck hunting. He hasn't hunted since the early 2000s. Um, he was actually looking at buying your chokes, and then he got confused on the price point on them on the website. So
Yep.
uh, for the waterfowl chokes, you've got the three different waterfowl chokes that I saw: the decoy, passing, and UFO.
Yes.
With those chokes, can you buy all three together in a package?
Yeah, so I don't sell packages or kits, and the reason I don't is as a competitive clay target shooter, as a hunter, and as somebody that's bought every choke on the market, I feel like if it's a kit or a set, that's a way of a manufacturer upselling more than one choke to you, because obviously they're trying to give you a little bit of a break on price by buying multiples. But the problem is you end up with chokes you don't want or that you're not going to use. That's what I've seen, not only in my personal testing, but also talking and hunting with a lot of different people. So what I decided was I would just sell them singly. That way you're going to get exactly what you want and what you need, and you're not going to be paying for extras that are going to sit in your gun case all the time and you're not going to use them. Um, with that said, yes, mine are not the cheapest choke in the industry. And the reason they're not is because I consider them the Ferrari of choke tubes. They do pattern the best. It's been proven so. And they also come with the best warranty in the industry to back it up. And because of that, I feel that the price is a really good price point for everybody. I understand some people may not be able to afford them. I get that. But the price point that they're at for what you're getting is a tremendous value. And the reason being is when you buy a choke from Muller Chokes, you know what you're getting before you put in your gun. You know what it's going to pattern like, because I've got multiple videos out there, lots of podcasts, lots of information on the website. And you can actually email me or PM me and I'm there for you. I'll walk you through it. But let's say you buy a choke from me and it ends up patterning tighter than you want it or more open than you want. What I offer for a warranty is a 60-day money back guarantee. And that starts from when you pull a trigger on it. So if you buy a choke from me now and you don't shoot it till December, your 60 days starts in December, not now. So I work off the loyalty program, right? So you buy a choke from me based on what you see on my website or what I've recommended or what you've seen or what you've heard, and you shoot the heck out of it. You pattern it, you hunt with it, shoot clays with it, do whatever you want. And if you don't think it's the best in the world, I will give you your money back, no questions asked. In that 60 days, I also do a free constriction exchange. So let's say you buy a passing choke and you shoot it and you're like, whoa, Jim, this thing is way too tight. I'm blowing ducks apart, over the decoys, or I'm missing too much because it's just too tight. I want a decoy. I'll swap it for free. So you're never stuck with anything you buy from Muller Chokes. And then after the 60 days, they have a full lifetime replacement warranty. Literally, even if you damage one by accident, I'll give you a new one for free. So you're never stuck with a choke from me. You're always going to get what you want. And even if something ever goes wrong with it, I'll give you a new one. So, best warranty in the industry, hands down. When you email our office or call our office, you're going to talk to Devin. If you email info@Muller Chokes, Lauren's going to look it over. She's going to pass it on to Devin if it's a customer service question. And if they cannot help you or they cannot answer you, or if you need me for any reason, it's going to be directed right to me.
All right.
So when you contact Muller Chokes, you're talking to Devin, Lauren, or me, and that's it. So you're not dealing with people that don't know what a choke tube is, or don't know what modified is, or doesn't know what TSS is. You're dealing with me and my small staff that are very knowledgeable and educated. So it all works out hand in hand.
Perfect. Perfect. No, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that the company has pride, and
Yep.
I like to see that in a company. So
Thank you, man.
yeah.
Yeah, it's taken a lot. I all of my material is all made in the USA, whether it be my aluminum for my feather lights, it's all mil spec material, um, all um, all DARPA and DFARS. Um, then my stainless steel, same situation, all DFARS, all mil spec material, all founded and milled in USA. And then I do all my machining right here in Connecticut. So everything is all done here. No materials or manufacturing overseas, and then assembled in the USA.
Right.
So everything's done right here, and we literally machine the parts in Milford, Connecticut. They go to heat treat in Monroe, Connecticut. They go to anodizing in Stratford, Connecticut. They go to laser engraving in Wallingford, Connecticut. My stainless steel hunting chokes and competition chokes, my Cerakote in Pennsylvania, and that's it. Once they're done, I send them down to my storefront in Florida where Devin and Lauren are, and they put them into the bins, into inventory, and the orders roll from there.
Perfect.
So it's really important to me that everything's made in the USA and machined in the USA, and everybody that works on them is in the USA. So
That's
that's the
awesome.
way it's always been. It's the way it'll always be with Muller Chokes.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. So
Thanks, man.
yeah. And then I think we got time. I asked you to have a story for me. Can we hear that story?
Yeah. Um, so one of the reasons that I started this whole choke thing was like when I had just mentioned about having to buy 10 modified chokes to get to the pattern right. Well, what had transpired from that was I went in the shop, made my own chokes. Well, the chokes that I had made back in 93 were stainless steel. I hardened them so I could use them for steel shot, lead shot, turkey loads, buckshot, you name it, slugs. And I wanted a choke that I could do everything with. So I made 3 constrictions: close, medium, and far. And I continued to use those for clay targets and hunting, right? So what had happened was my father and I go out duck hunt on opening day, right? And I've got my Browning over and under, which I had these other modified chokes in that were approved for steel shot. And I had my Remington with the chokes that I had made for duck hunting. So we go out, and this Drake Mallard is coming right to us, right to the decoys. He's literally 20 yards, wings cupped, feet out. My dad's like, go ahead. I shoot him right in the breast, and this mallard picks up, flies over me, and falls in the creek behind me. And he's sitting there quacking, looking at me. And I'm like, what the hell was that? And my father's like, well, I don't know, man, but shoot him again. Feathers came out of him when I shot him, and he should have been dead to rights. So he's sitting there like 25 yards from me now, quacking. So I shoot at him with the second barrel, and it was literally like you took the pellets and threw them by hand. They were all around the bird. And he just sat there looking at me. And I was at 25 yards, man, with steel fours. And this was the modified choke that I had bought from this other company. This was one of the 10 that patterned really well with lead target loads. Well, obviously did not pattern good with steel shot, right? And this was 1.25 ounce steel fours, Remington. And my dad's like, what the heck? So he's like, the duck now, the mallard swimming away from me is like 35 yards in the middle of the creek going. And my dad's like, why don't you try the choke you just made in your Remington? And I'm like, yeah, why not? I picked it up. And when I shot that Drake mallard, it was like you threw an M80 in the creek. It was an explosion of water. When the water settled, it was a pile of feathers and the duck was stone dead laying on the water. And it was the same ammo. And I'm like, holy cow, what the heck? My dad's like, well, when you go home, throw those other chokes away from that other manufacturer you got in your Browning and go make yourself chokes like you did for that Remington. So that was like literally how I got into making my own chokes and realizing there was a huge difference, not only in lead target loads, but also steel hunting loads. And that's the story that got me into making my own chokes, which ended up, I ended up winning a lot of tournaments, ended up, shooting a lot of ducks. I made them for my friends and my family. And then fast forward all those years from back then to when I developed the choke tubes and learned all this stuff in ballistics and how every gun was different, every choke was needing to be different, every ammo was different, and that's what brought me to where I am today. And that's all I do now is make choke tubes for a living.
All
So
right.
yeah, it was pretty wild to see that.
Looks like it didn't take you long to prove to yourself that your chokes were better.
That was exactly it. And then I had to figure out why were they better, you know.
Right.
And then once I figured out why they were better for those two guns, the Remington and the Browning, then I had to find out why were all the guns so different and what made the choke pattern better in all those guns and what needed to be done to create that gun specific pattern geometry for every gun across the board. And then I had to do with every ammo on the market. And then I had to go back and test every choke against mine to make sure mine truly did pattern better with lower shot deviation and better pattern efficiency and consistency and all that. So it's been a huge endeavor and a huge undertaking. And every time a new shotgun comes out or a new ammo comes out, I test it and I make sure that my chokes are doing what they need to do. And if they don't, I make tweaks along the way until it is better. So
There you go.
I'm always on top of it and I'm the one doing it constantly, you know. So it's fun, it's my passion, and it's now my job.
Awesome. So I'm sure you can see I got a couple shotguns beside me here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I like to have a shotgun that has a little bit better pattern farther out and one that patterns a little better closer. And
Yes.
two, last year I had two shotguns, but I broke one, semi-automatic, and I broke the bolt on it, broke it in half. And so
Yep.
I was glad I had two shotguns, that's for sure, because
Yes.
I think I
Yep.
broke it at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And
Yes. Yep.
yeah,
That happened to me up in Canada. I always bring two guns with me because of that exact reason, especially if I'm not near home, right? If I'm
right.
near home, my wife has her shotgun, I've got mine. We've always got two anyway. But when I used to do a lot of hunting alone, it would be just me, right? So
Hmm.
when I would go to Canada, I would always bring two guns, or if I went to a big sporting clay tournament where score mattered, I always had two guns. Or even now, when I'm out in the duck blind in open water, where I'm too far to come back home to grab another gun, I've always got two guns with me. And they're all matching guns, they're all identical, and because fit for me is important and feel and everything's important to me because I shoot at a very high level.
Right.
Um, so I was up in Canada and I had a Breda, Breda, and Breda was one of the first knockoffs of a Benelli, and Breda had claimed that their guns were better than Benelli and all this stuff, and their guns were very nice. They were machined very nice. Things were hand polished, hand stoned. The barrels were nice, and unfortunately, I was up there hunting, and I had won a couple big sporting clay shoots using this gun, and I'm up in Canada shooting, and all of a sudden, like I shoot at a goose and this big flash and stuff hits me in the face, and the guy next to me hollers, "Ow!" And I'm like, "What just happened?" and the face of the bolt actually blew off. And I was shooting factory loads, 2 3/4 inch, only 1,300 feet per second, which is considered a pretty light load in the industry these days. So it certainly wasn't a load. And there was probably imperfections in the metal or hydrogen embrittlement from the heat treating in the metal. And the whole face of the bolt sheared off, and unfortunately hit my buddy that was next to me in the blind. And so, that was also like an eye-opening moment. Like, don't buy cheap shotguns. I always try to teach people, if you can't afford it, well, understood. Try to buy a used, well-known brand if you could, like from a gun dealer or gun broker or something. But what I learned back then, and the years following all the testing I've done, I learned that it's just not smart. It's just not good to buy off-brand guns, because these things can happen. And the reason these things happen is I learned other countries where they're manufactured do not have to strictly stand by SAAMI standards, SAAMI standards. They say they do, but they don't. And they don't because it's costly, and they don't have to. So what happens is we buy a gun here in the USA that's made in Turkey or made in some other country, Pakistan, or who knows where, or where the parts were made, we have no idea. And what happens is they're not made to SAAMI standards, even though we think they are, they're not. And then we're out there and we're shooting this hyper velocity ammo or heavy payloads, and this stuff can't hold up to it. And we end up with blown receivers, people getting injured. I'm like, we spend all this money on duck boats and trucks to pull the trailers and decoys, and we travel, and all this ammo that we're paying for, and then we go and we skimp on a shotgun. It's like we're skimping on the most important part of the entire hunt, because without a good shotgun, what are you doing? You could get there, but what's going to kill the duck or what's going to break the target? It's the shotgun. So, yeah, it's the Indian, not the arrow. But let me tell you, if you don't have an arrow in the bow, you're not going to kill anything, right?
Right.
So the shotgun is the most important part of your hunt, and the choke tube is the last thing that touches the shot column before it exits to the duck. So
Hmm.
the shotgun and the choke tube are very important. A lot of people think choke doesn't matter. It matters a lot more than you think. And so does the ammo that you're putting through it. So the shotgun is the most critical component. Don't skimp on the price. Buy a very well-known brand. And I could sit there and rattle them off, but there's no need. I'm not here to promote gun companies, but buy a well-known brand shotgun. It doesn't matter if it's $500. Mossberg makes amazing shotguns for $500. You never have to worry about them breaking or blowing up on you. And if you want to spend 1,800 or $2,000, there's a lot of top brands out there for that too.
Hmm.
But to buy these off-brand guns that are made in other countries, not to SAAMI standards, you're asking for a problem.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing with me, and that's it. And we had mentioned factory chokes. A lot of chokes will work well inside 25 yards. A lot of ammunitions will work well inside 25 yards. And the reason I say that distance is, ballistically speaking, inside 25 yards, you could use pretty much anything and kill a duck consistently. And that's being honest. Doesn't matter what choke you use, doesn't matter what ammo you use, and it doesn't matter what gun you use. If you're on a bird at 25 yards, it's going to die for the most part. Okay. There are some extreme situations where certain chokes won't and certain ammos won't, but for the most part, it's going to work inside 25 yards. But when you break that 25-yard line and you start to get to that 30, 35, 40 and beyond, it becomes a whole nother world. And if you're beyond 40, it's another universe. And things need to be really, really specific and really dialed in. And that's where certain ammos and where my chokes really shine. So it all depends on what you're doing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, and when I first, because I mean I duck hunted when I was a kid, kind of got away from it, and then I came back to it a couple years ago, and um, I wasn't a confident caller, and so a lot of my shooting was pass shooting, and
Yes.
you're not in 25 yards of pass shooting, and
No.
I was using an off-brand shotgun with factory chokes, and I was lucky to come home with one duck after going through boxes of ammo. Um,
Yes.
and since then, I have improved my calling, got better shotguns, better chokes, and um, I've definitely been a better shot since then. But
Yeah.
now, one of my things is I really like to get them right there in the decoys with the landing gear out, and that's where I like to take
Nothing
them.
like it.
Yeah.
Nothing like it, man. It's great. And that's why, I always promote my decoy choke. And because my decoy choke is really phenomenal out to 35 yards. And with the right loads, even beyond 35. And you're doing so with a big, consistent, huge diameter outer fringe pattern. Your hit to miss ratio goes through the roof. Your cripple ratio goes way down. And it's just, I think it's my most beneficial choke that I've ever made, my decoy choke. And then if you're pass shooting or shooting sea ducks and geese, the passing choke's great for extended distance. And then UFO is really a specialty choke for, like Boss just came out with new War Chief.
Hmm.
It's incredible UFO. Um, a lot of bismuth is not good in my UFO because it's just tighter than bismuth likes. But the new War Chief is incredible in my UFO because it's buffered. The wads made by Boss. I mean, it's an incredible load choke combo. Um, and TSS in my UFO is insane past 50, 60 yards. Past 50, 60 yards. My belief is if you're going to shoot inside 50 yards, don't waste your money on TSS, please. There's no reason to.
Right.
Like Boss Bismuth, I used and hunted with. My friends use it. I mean, out to 50 yards all day long with my chokes. So why would you waste your money on TSS to shoot inside 50? It's my opinion. You're just wasting your money. But if you're going to shoot past 50, there is nothing that will do the job like TSS. So, um, and that's it. Inside 35, my decoy choke's incredible. Out to 50, my passing choke, and then beyond that, the UFO with specialty shot.
All right. Yeah.
You know?
And that's why I've got the two shotguns. It's
Yep,
sub 40 yards and past 40 yards is kind of how I judge it, and
yep,
and yeah, and that's why I've got them. And occasionally if I use my three shots and I missed all three, then I grab the other shotgun because it's faster than reloading.
yep. That's right.
Yeah.
When I hunt on the beaches or in the boats for sea ducks like eider, scoter, old squaw, I'll have my two guns and I'll have my decoy choke in one of them loaded with 3 inch ounce and 3/8 steel at 1300, or I'll have Boss Bismuth in it, and then with my other gun with my passing choke, I'll have my TSS in it for stuff that's, I see a nice big Drake King Eider coming by at 60 yards. I know I can fold them up with one shot, but I'm not going to try to do it with my steel shot in my decoy choke.
Right.
So,
Right.
so it all depends on what I'm hunting, what I'm shooting, what ammo I'm using, the weather, the wind. It depends on a lot. How birds
Right.
are moving. So I do carry two guns myself a lot of times, choke differently with different ammo.
Mm.
You know, and and with that being said, one big takeaway when it comes to ammo is, pellets are the things that are going to kill a bird or break a target. So I always teach people shoot the heaviest payload you can get and shoot it at the lowest, slowest velocity you can find. And the reason I say that is because steel does not like anything faster than 1,300 feet per second. Bismuth does not like anything past 1,350. And TSS loves slower velocities under 1,300. So if you could find really heavy payload and slow velocity, that is going to be what kills birds at extended distance.
Right. Hey, I'm running into some technical difficulties. I'm gonna have to hang up and call you back in 1 second, okay?
You got it, Clint.
All right, give me just
Thanks,
one
brother.
second. Yeah.
You got it. Hey,
I,
sorry about that.
you're good.
About the delay there.
I just had some technical difficulties on my end. So,
No
all right.
worries. Zoom wanted to do updates.
Yeah, isn't that always the way it works, right?
Yeah, it is. So, what did you miss, or where would you like me to pick up? Or
Well, I got right to where we were, but
okay,
my end on Zoom was just it was trying to shut me down, so I had to
okay,
start
no
back up.
worries.
Yeah, but
Cool,
no,
man.
I uh, so you're in Connecticut, correct?
I am.
You
I
are.
am. I'm in Connecticut. My storefront and my employees, my fulfillment center is in Fernandina Beach, Florida.
Okay, sounds good. Will you give us your website address so that my listeners can check out your chokes?
Yes, I will. So it's mullerchokes.com, and that's spelled MULLERCHOKES.com. And we've got a big social media presence on Facebook as well. So lots of good stuff out there.
Perfect. Nah, I like I said earlier, I've been talking your chokes up quite a bit and getting people to go check them out. And if you're interested in that aftermarket choke world, um, that I've been sending them your way. I haven't figured out
Thank.
how to give the umlau on the U there, but
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. So I just hold my finger down on the U, and it'll pop up and give you a choice.
oh, there we go. Yeah,
Either on a laptop or a phone.
all right. Yeah,
So it's fun.
that's one of the things I never figured out was the special characters.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
exactly. But do you have any other questions that you want me to touch on?
No, in reality, I just wanted to get the basics on how you got started into this, and I want to
Yep,
get people informed that they don't have to use that factory choke. There's better options out there that are going to perform better consistently, and
yep,
so
absolutely.
yeah,
The factory chokes, like we talked about, the way they're made, they are not made to perform well. And the reason being is it's just the gun has to come with something, so they put something in it, right? And I've got so many stories I could talk to you days about. Um, I would never use a factory choke, and one of the biggest reasons, not only geometry issues we talked about, okay, but also the fact that they all have limitations. And one thing that I didn't mention that we are talking about, every choke in the market has a limitation. They have deficiencies. They rust, they loosen, they build up with carbon and plastic, they don't shoot the way they're marked. But on top of all that, they have limitations. So, like a lot of chokes, you cannot shoot steel shot through a full choke, right? Or you cannot shoot a certain velocity. You cannot shoot a certain wad style. You cannot shoot, certain payloads, different shot sizes. So I fixed all that. So with my H2O hunting series, it's the only choke in the world that I know of currently that literally has no ammunition limit whatsoever. You could take my decoy, my passing, my UFO, you could shoot steel ball bearings, buckshot, slugs, any obviously steel shot, any TSS, any bismuth, any lead, any velocity, any wad style. You never have to worry about something going wrong. And it's because of the way that I manufacture them and heat treat them.
that is awesome. I gotta say, like that.
Yep.
Um, a guy that I used to work with, he was really heavy into the tungsten. He loved shooting tungsten shot, and
Yes.
he learned the hard way not to use it in uh, certain chokes.
Yes.
He ate up one of his chokes really quick with his tungsten, um,
Yes.
and so uh, I've told him about your chokes, and I don't know if he's purchased them yet. He recently just bought Browning I believe it was a Satori shotgun, and so uh,
Nice.
he he bought that to go turkey hunting, and so I'll have to
Yep.
verify he's getting your choke so he can put those in there.
Cool, man. You
Yeah,
know that the biggest thing that I felt was important for everybody, whether you're any shotgunner, clay targets, hunters, three gun competitors, I mean, home defense people, law enforcement, you name it. Um, I just wanted to make sure that they had a choke tube that had no limit. You can put anything you want in it and it's going to work really well, but also never worry about being stuck with something they bought that they don't like or that does not suit their needs perfectly. And, that's why I did my warranty and that's why I developed the choke the way I did. No matter what you want, what you do, you're never stuck with it and you're never stuck with something you don't like if you buy a Muller. You
that's
know, you buy
that's
it. Yeah, it's more expensive than some of the other chokes. Not the most expensive, but it's up there. But it's definitely going to be more expensive than your factory choke, right? Because you don't have to buy your factory choke. So I understand a lot of people just say, "Oh, shoot a factory choke. It was made for the gun. It was made to do what you're supposed to do." No, it wasn't. It really
right.
wasn't. And I see that all over social media. People are like, use the factory choke it came with. It's fine. It's what it was meant for. Don't waste your money on aftermarket chokes. That's so far from the truth, but people don't know. People think, well, it came with it, so it must be good. No, it's not good. It's not meant for big steel shot. It's not even meant for big hunting loads, period. And they're not hardened. They're not heat treated properly. They're not machined properly. They're not held to the right tolerances. And nothing was innovative when they made the factory choke. They made a choke with a taper, with a parallel section. They had some thousandths of an inch constriction in it based on 1950s specification. And they threw it in the gun and sent it to you. And they paid the choke manufacturer somewhere between $3 and $5 each for them. That's what you're getting with your factory gun. Is that
Yeah,
what you want to? Is that what you want to book a $6,000 hunt in Alaska and bring to you? Bring with you and go shoot at your stud king eider of a lifetime and watch it just keep flying because you're shooting a factory choke. Not me, man. Nope.
exactly. It's
So,
funny that you say that they're not machined properly and all that. I was actually putting a shotgun together to put it on the shelf, and
yep,
I, uh, it was a shotgun that came with two barrels, and so I'd put one barrel, or I put one together that had the shorter barrel and one that had the field barrel on it, but the field barrel didn't have a choke in it. So I grabbed one out of the
yep,
box, threaded on. It didn't even thread in all the way.
yep,
And
yep,
when I saw that, I was like, well, maybe there's a deformity in this one choke. And every choke in that box didn't thread in all the way. And that's the factory chokes that are coming with that shotgun. And I mean, granted,
yes,
it's a $200 shotgun. And so
yes,
you're getting what you pay for there for sure. Um,
yep,
but that would definitely be something that would concern me if I was trying to buy that gun. Um,
yes,
and where you've taken the time to, make sure that your chokes are going to work in the guns is phenomenal. Now,
yeah,
I mean, if I bought that $200 shotgun, I probably wouldn't be spending the money on chokes, but I don't think I'd buy that
yep,
$200 shotgun.
yep, yep. Yeah,
So,
my eyes were open many years ago to factory chokes. Obviously, when I started making chokes with the intent to sell them, I went through all of this testing that I did. And of course, going through all the testing, the first thing I started with were the chokes in every single gun out there. And when I started measuring every one of them, Mike and the OD, the ID, the taper length, using a profilometer to check the surface finish and see where they were at. My Lord, it was downright scary. I mean, there were choke tubes that were out of round 10 thousandths of an inch. Surface finishes varied 100 micro inches from one choke to the other in the same box. the thousandths of an inch constriction were about the only thing that was somewhat consistent. And why? Because that's the only thing that they focused on, because it's the only thing that people pay attention to. You know,
Right.
I've seen hundreds of thousands of customers at shows all over the country. What do they do when they pick up a choke? They look down it and they look at the outside of it, and that's it. Why? Because that's all they can do. They don't walk around with a micrometer and a dial bore gauge and a profilometer to look at the threads. They walk around with their eyes. So they look inside it. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Looks smooth. They look at the outside of it. Oh, it looks pretty cool. Which is why companies port chokes, by the way, because they look really cool. So you buy them.
Right.
Porting does nothing good for a choke tube. But we talk about that for days. So all these things, like negative chokes. Choke companies made negative chokes so they could sell you more chokes because the 13 they already made wasn't enough. A negative choke is bigger than your bore. It does nothing. So there's so many things out there that are factory gimmicks that are literally just out there to get you to buy it. And that, for me being a manufacturer, me being very passionate about hunting and shooting and competing, that was not okay for me. And when I learned that these certain companies were doing this, I was like, no, thank you, never again. You know?
Yeah.
So, and the customer service, same thing. I would buy chokes. They wouldn't measure right. They wouldn't fit the gun. Um, they wouldn't pattern anything like what they were marked because of these issues. And I would call them up and tell them exactly what I found. They'd be like, "You bought them, you own them." And they're like, "You want a different one? Buy it." And I'm like, "Really?" You know, I'm like, "So I'm stuck with this choke that doesn't even fit the gun." They're like, "Well, it's not our problem." And I'm like, "What do you mean it's not your problem?" They're like, "Well, it's the barrel." And I'm like, "But that's fine. I understand if there's barrel tolerance and your choke doesn't fit a barrel. I've had that issue with my chokes because I make mine fit the barrels very closely. So if we get a barrel that's got too much chrome plate or their tap was dull or whatever, and my choke's tight, I understand. But guess what? I'm going to make sure that I get you a choke that fits at my expense. And if I can't get you a choke that fits your barrel, I'm going to ask you to send me your barrel and I'm going to pay for the shipping so I could make sure that I get a choke that fits your barrel. And I'm going to send it back to you at my dime so you have a choke that fits your barrel properly. You know, it's not your fault that a barrel doesn't fit chokes properly because it wasn't machined properly. I want to make sure that I take care of you. And that's the customer service that I strive on,
And
you
that's
know.
awesome.
You know.
I mean, that,
I have a gentleman right now he just sent a barrel out today. It's coming to me because it's from a company where they have big tolerances in their barrels. And one of my chokes was tight. One of my chokes was fitting good. But the problem he ran into is he has chokes from 3 other companies. Some of them fit, some of them don't. And his factory chokes, 2 of them don't fit. So I'm like, listen, just send me your barrel. Let me take care of it for you. And I'm not charging them. I sold them 2 chokes. I'm gonna make sure they both fit perfectly. And when I'm done with everything, all of his other chokes are also gonna fit the barrel perfectly. So that was the gun manufacturer, not the choke companies at all.
right.
So that's what I do.
That's awesome. Uh, I mean, you don't see that in companies anymore. Yeah,
No,
you don't see
no,
a company that's going to help the customer more than just sell it to them.
no. What I realized is that a lot of companies, and not all of them, there's some wonderful people that are in these companies, but the problem is they get big. They can't deal with you one on one anymore. I know every owner of every choke company. I know the owners of a lot of ammo companies. I know the owners of a lot of gun companies. I've dealt with them one on one. I know all the gunsmiths that are out there, but the fact is, they are too busy to be able to deal with you one on one. They just can't. And I understand that. I'm not that person. I'm going to make sure that I'm here for you because of what I do and what I believe in. So it's a benefit with Muller chokes. and I'm always going to make you right. I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to help you. And if I can, I'm going to teach you. And that's what I strive on. It's what I enjoy. It's what I do.
That's perfect. I that's just amazing to me. I mean, uh,
Thank you.
being in the retail world, um, I have a little more pull with some companies than just a customer because I'm the person that the customer's dealing with, and so
Yes,
businesses that that are making the products that we're selling, they will listen to me a little bit, but that's because I'm dealing with a bunch of customer problems, and um,
yep,
I'll send it to the business I if we can't find a solution without doing that, because I know that the business won't handle every simple problem. And
exactly.
even in my shoes, I still get turned away a lot. Um,
Yeah,
and it's frustrating. Um, and dealing with between the retail side and then also with this podcast and uh, having that following of the people that I want to express these companies and I want to show them off, right? And where your company
yes,
being American made, having phenomenal customer service, um, even when I first reached out to you guys, everyone I talked to, phenomenal, amazing to deal with. Um,
excellent.
and that was I knew I wanted you on the show before, but that just drove it harder. That I wanted you to be on here, and I want my followers to know where the best of the best is, and that's
Awesome.
definitely Muller chokes. So
Thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate you. And yeah, it's important that people understand what they've got, what they're getting, and they don't know because it's been all pretty much marketing hype. And it doesn't matter if it's the guns, the ammo, the chokes, the decoys, the boats. It's all the same, man. And me being one of you, I've experienced all of it, which is why I decided I'm done with this. I'm just making my own. And because I did it out of necessity and I perfected everything, that's why my chokes are performing the way they do, because I fixed every problem they had. And I continue to strive to make sure that mine are the best, all the time. And it's important for me that everybody's happy with their products, and they're happy in the shooting stand at competitions, and they're happy in their blind, and everything's running the best it can run.
and
And
that
you know I basically spend on average 12 hours a day, messaging people, talking with people, explaining to them what ammos are best, what payloads, what velocities, what shot sizes, what pellet materials, helping them out with problems they're having with their guns. When I see them posting something on Facebook asking people about certain issues or certain things, I privately message them and I tell them my experience and which direction is a good one versus what people are telling them, because people are trying to help, but the people don't know.
right.
I do, because I've dealt with it. So that's what I do. Most of my time during the day is spent actually helping people with things that have nothing to do with choke tubes, even just to make sure that their hunts are successful and they get better at what they're doing.
That's awesome.
Because we just don't know. It's hard.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. It's what I like to do.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, I appreciate you coming on to my show. Um, this this will be coming online here in a couple days. So
Cool. Thanks, man.
yeah, I'll send you a link to it if you want to see it. And
Heck yeah,
uh,
man. And
hey, I appreciate that a lot. Um, for sure, for sure. Um, I had a thought, but I forgot it. So I guess we'll just move past that.
all right,
um,
man.
but hey, I appreciate everything, and like I said, I'm gonna keep pushing those Muller chokes because even though I don't sell them, it's a product that I believe in, and I want people to be successful as well. And so uh, the best way to do that is with the best, as far as your equipment goes. I'm sure you noticed the name of the show is called Clearance Camo. The reason
Yes.
the reason it's called Clearance Camo is because you know, Camo breaks up your pattern, and I don't need to go for the highest quality camo to break up my pattern. I can deal with a clearance camo. One
Yep.
thing that a lot of people get stuck on with that though is they think that I have that mentality where everything has to be cheaper. It
Yeah. Yep.
not everything has to be cheaper. Um,
Yep. That's right.
I'm a firm believer that you've got to have the right tool. So one of the things that um, I've worked with Tops Knives, and I gotta say that when it comes to knives, you've got to have a quality knife. You can't just buy a $3 one at the gas station and expect it to last you a lifetime, right?
Yep. You can if you want to cut butter with it, but not if you're doing other things with it.
Exactly. And so that's where a lot of people get confused on my show is they think that everything's the cheaper way. And it's not. I may not have a $2,500 shotgun, but I have a shotgun that is from a quality brand, and it's a quality gun. And so
Yep.
um, I've learned my lesson with the cheap shotgun, not going back that way. And so it's the same thing with with choke tubes, or if you're using even a motor for your boat. Um, don't buy a $30 motor from wish.com or whatever it is. uh,
Yep.
you've got to get something that's going to work and last. um, and
Yes.
and so that's where Muller chokes definitely fits in. And so I appreciate everything. And yeah, as soon as this goes live, I'll send you the link for it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Glenn. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. You have a phenomenal day.
You too, man. I'm
All
gonna
right.
uh, I'm gonna go make some fishing leaders and then start reloading some TSS. Duck
All right.
season's coming.
It is. All
Thanks,
right.
brother.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too, man.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the interview that I just had with Jimmy Muller. It was an amazing experience to have him on. I really appreciate the fact that he was able to come on to my show and explain some things. Uh, I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to do that, and that opportunity comes because of you guys. So because you guys are subscribing, you guys are listening, that gives me the chance to talk to these people and get more of these interviews in, and to get some of these stories out, like the story where he was hunting with his dad um, and had the issue with the factory chokes and actually got to use his chokes. Um, Stories like that make a difference in the community, and it's stories that everyone likes to hear. So as you guys heard in the show, he's obviously a very experienced shooter, experienced hunter, and some of these things happen to everybody. And so um, that's why I want to bring these people on, is I want them to show what they're offering, but also with that give experiences that relate to everybody. And so that's why I appreciate the fact that he came on. Hopefully you guys found some education in this and are able to apply that to what you're looking for. um, After talking with my wife and talking with some of my friends, we're pretty sold on these Muller chokes. If you guys want to see some of the evidence that supports what he's talking about in when we were talking, you can go check out another YouTuber, Surviving Duck Season. I brought that up. We're not affiliated in any way, but he has a whole string of episodes talking about uh, duck hunting equipment, specifically relating to shotguns, and Muller chokes is very well tested in that series. So I definitely recommend you check that out if you're having a hard time believing what we're talking about. Um, I got to say that it was a phenomenal opportunity to have him on the show, and I plan on continuing to do interviews like this, and between professional hunters, uh, people that are manufacturing products, people that are in the game, maybe not necessarily professional hunters, but maybe YouTubers that talk about hunting equipment and things like that. That kind of stuff I'm hoping to get more and more rolled out. Um, And one of the best ways that you guys can help me do that is if you were to subscribe to my YouTube and to my podcast. You can see my podcast, or I guess you can hear my podcast more. Um, in If you were to be on Spotify or Google Podcast or Amazon Music, or if you're on iHeartRadio, I have a few other places that my podcast is available. So Clearance Camo Outdoors, check that out. Obviously, keep the same name for everything. You can check out my Instagram too. It's clearance_camo, DOTCOM. Um, and there's a link to that on my YouTube. So since you guys are here, you guys will be able to find me there. Um, I appreciate you guys so much. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. Me sitting here with my microphone, my web camera, definitely would not be possible without you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm hoping that I get more and more content that's going to help you guys. And I'm hoping to get more stories out there for you. As he mentioned, duck season is coming up. I've got a little over a month before the season opens up here. And then I've only got about 10 days before dove season opens. I've mentioned in previous podcast episodes that I was hoping to get some places to hunt doves. It's not looking great, but we're going to continue to see what we can find. I may have found a spot, but we'll see how that turns out. It turns out it's a pretty common fishing area, and the last thing I want to do is be shooting around a bunch of fishermen. So anyway, I appreciate you guys. You guys mean the world to me. You guys are allowing me to fulfill my dream, and get these people on so I can get some information out to you guys. I hope you guys found this very helpful. I know I did. I learned a lot of things that I wasn't quite aware of. And yeah, I really do appreciate the opportunity that Jimmy gave me here. Um, and I've had another interview with Jim Shockey. And without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do that. I've been doing things that I never would have dreamt of, and that's because of you guys. Um, I was able to go on to the Tops Daily Grind, which is the Tops Knife podcast. I was able to do that, and so I'm living a dream that I never thought I'd be able to live. So thank you guys very, very much. I really do appreciate it. Just like Jimmy, it's time for me to start getting my stuff ready to go. Got the shotguns over here, ready to start rolling. Um, Getting everything put together so we can start that dove hunt that starts in just 10 days. And yeah, hopefully we get some stories out of it for you guys. Good stories. Because I really don't think they allow podcasting equipment in prison. So I'm just kidding, guys. No, I appreciate it very much. As always, guys, how I always sign off, aim slow and shoot fast.